Anthonites, let's talk, shall we? So, a buddy of mine reached out to me recently. So I'm recording this on like December the 2nd, and this was back right on the day of the midterm elections here in the U.S. He reached out to me because his employer had sent out an email with a sample ballot for his state. And his employer, encouraged everyone after work to go vote and included the sample ballot with the correct answers marked. Now, my initial reaction is that legal? But it turns out that yes, that's legal, so long as the employer doesn't say you have to vote this way to keep your job, or the employer doesn't, pay you or give you bonuses or anything like that in order to vote a certain way or whatever. But it got me to thinking about the power that we have and using it correctly. Using it. Now, correctly should always, like, when it comes to stuff like this, come with an asterisk, right? So, the friend who sent it also sent a copy to me and stuff, and we talked about it, and the employer in question is sort of known for having very conservative views on things, which is perfectly fine. Different strokes, different folks, whatever. My friend is, I would say, kind of feel weird talking for him because he's not here, but liberal, not extremely left, but centrist left. And that's about where I see myself as well. The employer being on the other side of the spectrum, I have to stop and ask myself if the employer would have had similar views to my friend, if he would have even thought to bring it up. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. But, I do think it's interesting that the employer in this case went out of his way to show, his hand, their hand. And I also think that it's really interesting that at the very least, the employer probably thought that he was doing the right thing, using his power the right way. But there's definitely something kind of creepy and weird and strange about being nudged by your employer on how you should vote. Depend regardless of what side of, whatever political aisle you may be on. So that's interesting. I've held many management positions in my day. I don't think I ever would have made that jump. I've never preached politics to any of the people that were below me, and honestly, I think there are some moral issues there in doing so, because just because of the way that I sort of think about those things. Now, don't get me wrong, I have had a fair share of political talks with co-workers, some of them above me in ranks, some below me in ranks. I always try my best not to initiate them, or If something is somewhat political, I will try to take the least political route of it. I don't know. But it really got me thinking sort of about, differing moral codes. And, like, so for instance, when I was an insurance agent, we had special classes that we actually had to go to, and in our continuing education thing. So anytime you get like a license for certain things, you have to go to these classes called continuing education, basically to maintain your licensure. And this is usually for things like insurance agents, teachers. A lot of times have to do continuing ed. A lot of times you'll find, I think, real estate agents in some states have to do it, and stuff like that. So there are ethics classes that they put you through, and it's a lot of interesting things that you learn there. Different names for things that you may have seen or whatever, other people do, or maybe even yourself at some point, that you wouldn't have even thought of. Concepts like twisting, or, well, that's the only one I could come up with off the top of my head. But these things where sometimes something may not be illegal, but they may break some sort of ethical or moral code, and sometimes not. A lot of times things come down to your intentions, which is really interesting. So sometimes when it comes to an ethics violation, your intentions can mean the difference between whether it's illegal or not. And that's really interesting. So, I know legally speaking and morally speaking, from my standpoint, from what I can see, my friend's employer did nothing wrong. But I can't help but wonder if ethically, sort of giving the impression that his political viewpoints were the correct ones to his employees, not sure if that is an ethical way to do things. I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below, because I think that there's a good discussion to be had here. And like earlier when I said, that this guy was fairly conservative. He also not just in the fiscal conservative way, but also in the religiosity way. So that leads me to believe that he didn't see an ethical problem with it, which makes me wonder, some people in especially the Christian South, some people of the Christian faith are, they're sort of the mindset that, Christianity is constantly under attack, and, that they have to do what they can. So I'm wondering, especially because some of the stuff on the ballot was, one of the things was specifically like, should we allow more religious freedom in these areas? And I didn't do a lot of research, but I think that the whole point of the bill was sort of to reaffirm, like, for example, and again, this is just me reaching and guessing and whatnot from what little research I did, that, like, for instance, the whole, like, cake bakers, should they be able to say no to a gay couple who are, having a wedding cake or something? I don't know, whatever. So, there's a religious component to that, right? Or at least some would make that argument. So, like, from his standpoint, was it, the, potential defense of my faith versus, is that the greater good? Like, because sometimes when we are in our own minds fighting evil, we don't, there's not something on the other side saying, like, but are we fighting evil the right way? Like, are we fighting evil in, the most moral possible way? And I don't mean to say that, Christianity is good, all other faiths are evil. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying in this guy's mind, right? I don't know. But it's, like I said, I think there's a thread there to pull on, and I'd be interested to hear what you have to say about the matter. Also, I'd like to hear about, any other situations that you think might have an ethical or moral component to them. And, just to keep things interesting, try not to pick anything, like religious. Like, I know that, sort of this video's spoken about religion, but, as far as what I can see, and in my mind, this is more about the power you have and how you use it than it is about, any religious talk. Yeah. So let me know what you think, down there, and, maybe we'll have a conversation about it. Cool. Anyway, till next time, don't forget to like, subscribe, and do all those things and make me love my job. Also, be awesome to yourself and amazing to each other. Bye. I'm gonna hit the button. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna hit the button. Oh, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. You should probably click all this stuff on the screen. If I even bothered to put stuff on the screen. Maybe I did. Maybe I didn't. Oh, no. All right, I'm gonna do it. I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll do it. And boop!